guys, so I'm just going to be talking about how to set up a corn snake enclosure today. And I just want to say that I know there's many corn snake setup videos out there on the YouTube net, but I just want to thank you for watching mine. I'd love if you could watch it all. You might learn something. Now, a corn snake needs to have about a 20-gallon long. That's the one that's about like this. And a newborn you can fit it in a 10-gallon, but a corn snake will get a decent size and it will outgrow a 10-gallon pretty quickly. So I have a hatchling and I just jumped up to a 20-gallon long. The temperature, it really ranges. On the cold side, it could be just your normal house temperature as long as it's not too cold. You could have it around 70, and then the hot side needs to be around 85. The humidity, it can be around the same temperature as your home as well. They're really hardy snakes, so that's why they're good for beginners, because they can live in the wrong environment for so much longer and make it. But that being said, the humidity should be around 30 to 40%. You can help up the humidity by doing light mistings and maybe by even using a Reptifogger. But if the humidity is too high, they can get a respiratory infection, so you want to watch that. And with temperature, belly heat is very important because that's how reptiles regulate their temperature. Now, when I say belly heat, that means you need to have a heating pad. You can't give a snake heat from above, you have to give them heat from below. It not only warms them up, it also helps them digest their food. But that being said, you want to make sure it's not too hot to the touch, so that way you don't burn them. And one thing I like to use is a temperature gauge. It's an what is it? Electricity? It's yellow and black, and it's just like a little gun, and you can point and check the temperature on wherever. I mean, obviously don't point eyes because I feel like that would make them go blind, but you just want to make sure the temperature is pretty on par on both sides, and you can adjust your heating pad through a thermostat. For bedding, you can do many different routes. You can do forest floor, aspen, paper towels, even if need be, which I don't recommend it though because of the heating pad issue. You could even use like bare bottom, but that's just if it's like a hospital tank and maybe it has mites. Otherwise, you're good with paper towels, or if you want to go into beddings, or you can use tiles, but snakes like to burrow, so you have to take that into consideration. But you should never use sand because the sand can cause impaction. And impaction, unfortunately, you don't want your snake or any reptile to have that issue, ever. Some items you're going to need are a water bowl, of course, and a hide. Whether you want to put in two, it just depends on your setup, how you want it to be. Decor items, it just depends. I mean, since I have a smaller snake, I can have more in there, but if you have a bigger snake, you might just want to do like 1 or 2 hides and the water bowl. So for my corn snake, I have a hide on each side. I have a hide on the hot and cool side, and I have a water bowl not necessarily in the middle, but more on the cold side. You want to have the water on the cold side. Speaking of water, you can't use tap water because the chemicals and stuff that's in tap water can severely harm your snake. So you want to use either like a water conditioner such as Reptisafe, or you can distill water, which means you get tap water, you sit it out open for over 24 hours. The longer the better. You could even do it for a couple days, or you can do a mix of both, and that's what I do. I distill the water for at least 24 hours. Usually I'll do it 2 days, because usually a jug of water will last me. And I also put in Reptisafe. You want to replace the water ideally daily, but bi-daily would work too. And if you see like bedding in the water, you know that's a good time to change it, because the bedding in the water can make the water dirty, and you don't want your snake drinking dirty water. For my snake right now, it doesn't really matter, but you do want to have a top with a lock on it. My snake right now is only about this long, so there's no way she could reach the top to open it. But when she's bigger, that could be an issue. So you want to make sure, especially if you have a bigger snake, that you have locks on it, so that way it can't escape, and that could just be bad all around. Now lighting, Some say your snake needs lighting and some don't. It's really up in the air right now. At least to my knowledge, I think she's okay without the lighting, but you still want to have your snake on a cycle. So it knows when it's daytime and it knows when it's nighttime. Just the lights in your house or lights coming in through windows is good enough for that. Now, when your corn snake sheds, that's another issue where you need to raise the humidity so that the shed can come off in one long piece. That's a sign of a healthy snake. If it comes off in like little shreds or pieces, you need to fix something with your husbandry and figure out what's wrong. Maybe it's the humidity, maybe it's just extreme stress, but humidity is a factor in shedding. By bringing the humidity up, you can, like I said, spray, but you don't want to spray too much. You don't want to raise the humidity too much, even in shed, because it can cause mold in the bedding and it can cause a respiratory infection in your snake. You can use a rectifogger, and you also could use, I forget exactly what it's called. I call it Shed Ease. I think it's called like a tropical mist spray or something. There's a brand, I don't have it here with me, but you can spray it and it helps spray it in the enclosure. Not in the water though, because you don't want your snake drinking it, and that's a good way to help your snake with its shed too. If you're just getting your snake, you don't want to handle it for a couple days. You handle it to get it out, put it in its enclosure, and then leave it. Don't try and pick him up. Don't try and, I mean, you can look, but don't over stress the snake, because snakes can get stressed out very easily. And when you go to pick up your snake, if your top opens and you're grabbing down into your enclosure, that comes as a threat to your snake. Your snake views you as a threat because they don't like being grabbed from above. It kind of freaks them out. So maybe kind of watch that, especially some snakes are more nippy than others. You might get bit doing this. You just have to learn about your snake and your snake's individual personality and how it just is. When it comes to feeding, this is debatable for many reasons. I personally feed frozen. I have never once had to feed live. My snakes have always been able to eat frozen. Even the one that when I bought him, he was on live and he easily switched to frozen. It's also very dangerous to your snake because a live mouse or rat will defend itself. It will scratch, it will bite, and it will injure your snake. So to pick the right size of mouse or rat for your snake, you want to look at your snake's belly. When your snake eats, its belly will obviously expand because it has a whole creature inside of it. And when you look at it expanded, or when you look at the main belly, just imagine it expanded to about double. That's about how big you can go. Now, depending on the age of your snake and what size you feed, you can either feed once a week, or this is going to be how I do it is I'll feed my corn about once a week. But my ball python, it's not once every 2 weeks. It's once every week and a half-ish, something like that. That's usually when he's probably wanting more food. You just have to take in consideration what the sizes you're feeding compared to the snake, compared to its age. Some people feel like you should not feed your snake in its enclosure due to aggression and possibly impaction, and I don't feel like you should have to take your snake out because I feel like that would just stress them out more. Although they have a big belly of food. I don't want to be moved if I have a big belly of food. I don't want to be picked up. It would like upset my stomach. That's how I feel it anyway. So what I do is I have 1/3 of the tank, roughly, as a tile. It's a tile that fits in the tank, and then the rest of the tank is the aspen bedding. When I feed her, I have her on the tile part, and that's also where the heating pad is. So that way she can't burrow under the aspen and like get too close to the heating pad and burn her belly. So that way, and the heat still transfers up onto the tile perfectly. Like it's the perfect temperature. And it's been working out for months, and that's just what I'm going to keep doing. Like I feel like that works. I may eventually switch the bedding I have in there to something different, but for now, like I really like the tile thing I have going on. Okay, well, I'm just going to include some footage of me actually setting up the tank. These were just like little tips and pointers. Obviously, I'm not a professional. This is just how I take care of my corn snake personally, and she's thriving. She's doing very well. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. That's what's most important, is that you learned something. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.